Hey YouTube. So we had our first big guitar giveaway contest on the channel, and the winner chose the Silvertone U2 1303 reissue. Excellent choice, excellent choice. And so in this video I'm going to show you the processes that I'm going to put this guitar through to prepare it for shipping, which are basically the same processes that I would use for putting something into long-term storage. And so in this video I'm going to run down the steps that I put this guitar through and how I pack it up and the reasons I do the various steps and that sort of thing. And again, it would both answer, I had a question a little while back about long-term storage, especially winter storage, you know, or putting it into a storage unit or something like that. So this same process would apply to both long-term storage and shipping. So stay tuned as we go through the shipping processes on sending out this Silvertone 1303. So the first step in preparing this for storage is going to be to get everything, all the metal parts, particularly the strings, but lightly coat all the different hardware with some string cleaner conditioner. This I'm using here is the Dunlop 65 formula, and it's got the nice felt tip applicator. And so just getting you're not bathing it in oil, but just getting a nice basic coat on the hardware and the strings and so forth. Again, it's nothing thick, but just a light coating. This will ensure that nothing rusts in transit. I had a guitar that the post office lost for 3+ weeks, and when it finally showed up, it had come out of Miami, and when it finally showed up, it was not well packed. It was just basically it was a very nice gig bag, so the gig bag actually protected it. It was one of those big, thick foam, hard foam, the Roadrunner cases. Anyway, the case did its job and protected the guitar, but it was rusty because of the humidity. And so any exposed metal, you know, I'm not coating it heavily, but just a light coating is typically sufficient, and that'll just make sure that none of this arrives rusted. And so that's one step. At the same time, you're going to want to detune. Now, how exactly much you want to detune, matter of opinion. You definitely want to do some detuning so that you can relieve some tension on it, but I don't unstring. I don't take the strings off. It's good for the guitar to have some tension on the neck, but it's basically like down tuning a few steps. There, just so the strings you start getting that blow, 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 blow. This will also ensure if you detune too much, then you risk string breakage when when you put tension back on it. Just detuning enough that everything's still taut, but just it's not tuned up to pitch. There we go. So now the strings are still on there. This also, if you have any kind of floating bridge, this prevents issues from that, coming off and so forth. So just the strings are still on there, but they are detuned enough to just relieve some tension while keeping everything solid on there. So another vital step is to get a nice coating on the finished. And there's various things out there. I make my own carnauba wax. I use carnauba wax plus essential oils and some orange oil and so forth. And so I have this is my rag for it, and just again, a light coating. You don't want to be slopping it on or whatever, but a light coating, and then on the other end, either you put this into a storage unit and you get it out after some time, or in this case, the fellow that I'm shipping this to opens it up. He can hit it with a light cloth, and the oil will buff into a real nice shine. And again, the idea is you're preventing any kind of problems with the finish, getting too hot, too cold, drying out. It just gives a little bit of buffer. Make sure all the metal is protected in transit, the neck and so forth. And so in addition to the string oil, I use my carnauba wax oil blend to just get it nice and protected, and that way it won't be as prone to humidity issues and temperature issues and that sort of thing. Now that I've got everything oiled, detuned, lightly oiled, polished, and so forth, the vital step, and this is something that I do differently than a lot of other shippers and sellers out there, is at this stage I will now wrap it with cellophane. And this is particularly key if you're putting it into long-term storage. And so I've got just a big roll, and you can get these like bulk restaurant rolls. If you do a lot of this, a lot of shipping, a lot of storage, you can get these big restaurant rolls where you're getting, I mean, just incredibly cheap, because this kind of packaging is, you know, they have to use it in bulk. And so once you get a good solid base on it, once it's grabbed real good, and basically you're just turning it and making sure that everything gets covered. And this, you know, so you have the oil on, you have the oil in there, and this is preventing the oil from drying out and escaping. It's also preventing humidity from coming in, and it's just giving a little bit of ding protection. Now I'll come back, as we'll see in a minute, and use more padding and bubbles and that sort of thing on the outside. But at this stage, getting a nice tight wrap before you put any, you know, bubble wrap and that sort of thing, it really helps to make sure that the humidity stays out of it. And this sort of a thing is really easy to get off on the other end, is that you just, you know, get some not super sharp scissors, but some just little rounded scissors, and you give it a little trim and you can take it right off. Very easy. So this is like a plastic cocoon that you're putting on this thing. And I've shipped a good number of guitars. I was doing a lot of business on reverb before I started the channel and shifted my emphasis to the channel instead of reverb buying and selling, but I've sold at least 20 guitars, and I have never gotten any, you know, damage from, no customers have had any issues with damage, and this is the basic process I run through with all my guitars. And it's the same thing I do, because I don't, you know, I don't have enough room in this room for all my guitars, so when I put them into long-term storage down the hill, then this is what I do before I store them. And this keeps them so that out of the box you let them settle back in. Once you get this thing back out of storage, I will typically take the tail and wrap it around so that you can either, at the other end, you can either cut it off, like I mentioned, or you can start with the tail and unwrap it. But that's just, you know, personal preference. And I've got a pretty good bond everywhere. I'm just checking it for any spots that are exposed. Make sure everything's, you know, fitting to it nice. And basically the number of layers are just going to determine, you know, be determined by how long you want to store this. And this is for shipping, so it doesn't need to be super thick. More important for shipping is making sure I've got enough impact insulation, bubble wrap, and, you know, crunched up paper and that sort of thing in the box and bag and so forth, to make sure it won't have any impact damage and that sort of thing. Particularly important is that you've got a good buffer zone around the neck. I don't think having the hard shim in there is necessary, but having sufficient bubble, you know, in terms of impact resistance that has to crush in order to get to the neck is very, very important. And making sure that the cardboard itself is reasonably thick. You don't want to ship in thin cardboard. I've had guitars that are damaged because just the cardboard of the box was too thin, and so the box crushed too easily. So all of these are factors, and a lot of the particulars are going to depend on your goal. Are you shipping this? Are you storing it? And that sort of thing. But basically at this point you have a humidity controlled, oiled down, detuned guitar, and all you have to do now is put it into, I'm going to be shipping it in a gig bag. Again, I'm shipping it with a bag and a strap and cable and so forth. But at this point you can either package it in the box or put it in the bag and then in the box. And basically it's just a matter now of wrapping it up with bubble tape or bubble wrap, getting it taped up and, you know, buttoned up. So some points that you want to be sure to reinforce. You see I'm packing the bag in here with various filler products, and I've got up in the head, I've got the foam, I've got a layer of big bubble wrap, and also some cellophane, particularly around the head, to keep everything in place. Because the weak points, I've received various damaged guitars, and so there's a pattern to where the weak points are. And the head and right at the top of the neck is of course a weak point. And you want to be sure that what you have on the outside, you can pack this in tight, but then what you want on the outside of it is crushable stuff. If you have it really, really tightly packed, it'll still impact and it can still break the neck. So you want crushables out here, and then it get thicker and tighter as you go in. But in the outside box, you want it to be very crushable. So if there's a major impact, it doesn't push the insulation into the guitar. So the head, and then basically where the head joins to the neck, very important. In the bag itself, you want to make sure to wrap the neck sufficiently so to prevent impacts in that regard. And then the other major point is under the bottom. A lot of times the guitars will be set down, boom, like that. And you can see like this gig bag that I'm packing it in has some impact rubber down there, but that's still in shipping. If this thing really, boom, went down, it's going to cause an issue there. And so I've got some thick bubble wrap on the bottom, and then of course the body itself wrapped. And in there I'm more so crushing the insulation to give crushable on both sides. And then of course the bag itself provides additional protection, both from humidity and impacts and so forth. So I usually will ship in a gig bag of some kind. And so basically at this point I'm going to put it in the box, and I'm going to put big crushable insulation on the outside to prevent impact damage. So you can see here I've got key points with the foam insulation, and otherwise filling it in with crushable insulation. The manufacturing boxes, so in choosing your box, do you want to get a rectangle or a manufacturer triangle or trapezoidal, right? You do have, of course, more side impact protection with a square box. But the problem that I've had is sometimes if you don't match the box to the guitar, and so specifically I had a guitar that came to me damaged, and it was in this huge box, just massive, massive box, and the guitar inside was wrapped up some, but it was just bouncing around in there. And so a lot of the times that I've gotten damaged guitars in the mail, it's because the box was too big and there wasn't enough crushable and that sort of thing. And so you don't want there to be a lot of movement in the neck. And so if you don't put enough, if you have a normal rectangular box and you don't put enough packaging around the neck is going to be bum, 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 smacking the sides of the box. A box shape like this, much more like a coffin, it's like a guitar coffin, there's no room for it to go. And with the head protected on all sides, and of course this is on top of everything we've already done in the guitar case and so forth, and so it being a little bit tighter is actually better in the respect that it's not going to be bouncing around, and there's less likelihood that you'll have catastrophic damage from it shifting and that sort of thing. And so this is getting all packed up now and getting ready to send it out. As always, if you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. We've been really growing fast and doing great and love the community. So give me your feedback, and particularly just love to hear your stories and so forth. So you'll have a wonderful day.